Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I want to talk to you about whether professors actually care about their students. So if you don't know me, I'm a professor of innovation, strategy, and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There are so many people that helped me out to get through graduate school that I wanted to pay the favor forward and help you out. So do students actually care, or do professors actually care about their students? Absolutely. Most people that I talk to, they do care tremendously about the students that they are, looking after, or that they are, that they interact with. And I think that's an important thing to think about. And that's what I'm going to sort of suggest in this video, is that we do care a lot. And there's going to be differences in maybe what we care about compared to the perception it is on the student, and then give you a couple of tips in sort of dealing with this going forward, right? Like, how do you actually deal with some of this stuff? So, do professors actually care about the students? Absolutely. I'm not unique and unusual. Maybe I am, but I don't think I am. But I think that the primary difference is that the students are motivated, and this is just thinking about me as I was a student not very long ago, and this is what I was sort of thinking about, is I was primarily motivated by grades or assignments and things that are kind of like about immediate performance. And that is really important, because you're thinking about where can I go in the future, and if I don't get that grade, I'm not going to be able to go into grad school or whatever it is. But this is what I'm going to be thinking about, right, as a student. And I'm still probably, if I'm in that role again, I'd probably still consider that and think about that, and feel pressure to focus on those sort of immediate outcomes, right? But as a professor, or somebody that's kind of doing the instructing side, right, so the teacher side or whatnot, they're thinking about things a little differently. And what they're thinking about, and what I'm thinking about in general, is what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years, right? So the goal is to get somebody to learn a little bit, so that it impacts their life somehow positively in the future, and that they are going to make some sort of wiser decision in the future. So they acquire some knowledge, right? Whatever that is, you process that knowledge, you change your actions, whether it is you choose not to do something or you choose to do something based on that knowledge. But then you perform that particular action a little differently, and hopefully give you a little bit of performance in the long run. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for, is not like what is going on right now, but I'm thinking about, okay, if students are taking my class, what would I like to know at this moment, such in 5 to 10 years, I'm going to be making a little bit better decisions. And, because it's a business class, for example, maybe that they have a better career, or maybe they make a little bit more money, or maybe they're a little bit more innovative or something like that. That's what I'm looking at. A second thing that's really important to me, and I think to a lot of people these days, is whether people are going to make ethical decisions. So a lot of the stuff that I am going to be thinking about is thinking about, how to focus on getting people just to be decent human beings, follow the golden rule, do unto others as you would have to do unto yourself, right? So thinking about, like, how can they make a decision in the future such that when they're faced with these ethical decisions, which are not, they're never easy, right? Like, an ethical decision is by sort of default that it could be like this way or that way, and you never know which one is the right one, but you kind of err on the one that you think is going to make the most positive benefit in the future. And it's always a little bit tricky, but you want to think about that going forward, and that's, or at least consider it, right? And that's what I'm going to be thinking about as a professor. Like, that's really important to me. A third thing is, and this is where it kind of conflicts with what students want and what I personally want as well, is sort of fairness across the board with other students, right? So I might really like a student, and I think that they should perform very well, and might want to try to favor them, but I can't, because you want to make sure it's fair across the board within the classroom, right? It's kind of like raising kids. I've got two wonderful kids. But I can't sort of favor one over the other. That's not necessarily a good thing to do in terms of parenting. And then the same thing is in the classroom. So you want to make sure it's as balanced as possible. And that's always a judgment call. It's always difficult to do. So I'm going to be a little bit unforgiving on a lot of different things, just because I'm focused on fairness, right? And so That's what I'm going to be concerned with, and I think a lot of people are going to be thinking about that as well. And so there's a real balance, or there's real tension in terms of trying to help somebody specifically out and being fair to everybody else. The other thing that I would like to do, so this is the fourth thing, is to get people to sort of consider and think about things a little differently, right? So it might not necessarily be, the right thing to do, or the thing that's going to provide, the highest optimization, or whatever it is that you're thinking about in life, the thing that's going to get you to the right decision or the most money. But I just want you to think about something a little differently and come at it from a different angle. And I think that's more important things than in terms of, like, am I actually going to take this course and get a bunch of money out of it? No, that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, if that person takes this course, are they going to think about things a little differently, and maybe just get a little bit of insight, and whatever they choose to do with that is up to them. The last thing I want you to consider is, professors are really just people. And, there's lots of differences across professors, just like in the real world with people. We're all unique and different, and we all do things differently. And so you have to think about that across the board, that, one thing that I think about is not going to be the same thing that somebody else thinks about. And that's kind of something that we would teach about in business, right? Like, that's an important thing to think about, is that everybody is really different. Every business is really different. And that's an important thing to consider. Now, if you've had a poor reaction, or poor interaction with a professor, and that's why you're watching this, and you're asking this question, I just want you to think about these couple of things, right? So the first thing I want you to consider, and just really think about this, and I know that you're probably just watching this video late at night or something like that, and just consider this, that learning is really emotional response. I get like that as well. Every time that I learn something, I kind of get a little angry, or I feel a little bit like, I just don't have a very good response to it. And that's just me learning. And I think that's not unusual in any sort of way. You're using up a lot of energy in your brain. Thinking about things is always rough. And then you have to remove or think about different beliefs. And every time you do that, you have to sort of throw out the stuff that you've thought about before. And some of those things might be really strong to you or held to you. And that might give you an emotional response, right? And that emotional response is often negative. Sometimes it's really positive, but often it's negative. So just consider that, right? So what is that information doing to you, and is that playing out in the relationship that you have? And the second thing I want you to really consider is, often as a professor, as myself, as sitting in front of people and talking and stuff like that, it's often really difficult to interact with people, in the sense that you are, it's you trying to be as fair as possible with other people. And so if somebody has kind of like a little bit of an abrasive kind of reaction to you, then it's hard to often sort of process how you're supposed to interact as the professor, right? And that's what I'm thinking about. I'm like, I don't know how to react. And so sometimes people react kind of, not so good under stressful conditions. And that's fine. You should just consider it's often not the fact that it's the professor trying to, like, run you down or anything like that, but it's just sort of the situational factors, right? So if you run into those individuals later on, they might just really be pleasant human beings, and that's totally fine. But in the classroom where there's that weird sort of tension that happens, and it's often the case, just know that they're not trying to be, they're not trying to project in that sort of way. It's just an emotional response, and they just can't. It's hard to sort of process that and to deal with that. So it sometimes comes across negatively. So you want to consider that going forward, in terms of what you're going to do, and dealing with all these emotions and stuff. So my point is, don't sort of take it like really strongly in any sort of way. It's not necessarily like an intended response that something sort of negative was said or something like that. But just consider that, there's a lot of things going on. It's a really complicated thing. And, as a professor myself, we do care a lot about students, about you, in terms of you doing well going forward, right? Like that's kind of why we do the things that we do, is because we just care a lot about something, about somebody, in about you, right? Like that's an important thing to think about. And so that's all I'm going to say with this. Just know we do care about you. There's lots of people that do care about you in terms of the interactions that we have and stuff like that. So just know that there's other people that are looking out for you. All right. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.